Finance Committee meeting, April 16, 2025. We'll begin with roll call and determination of quorum.
Beaverdorf. Here. Evans. Here. Pettigrew.
Here.
Roseland.
Here.
Stroman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Bieberdorf and second by Roseland to adopt. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now is the time for general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have several speaker request forms today, and so I'll call you up, and would you go to the microphone over there, and you'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. And we'll begin with Steve Dami.
Is this on? Thank you for having me. My name's Steve Dami. I'm a resident of the Northern Heights neighborhood that made local news last night. And as a resident of the neighborhood over the past 10 years plus. In the last 2 years, I wanted to speak my concerns about the degradation of the neighborhood, particularly with the concern of the Northern Heights apartment complex. I live directly across the street from the Space Avenue entrance to the complex. The news last night showed concern of trash and violence in a neighbor's yard and people that would climb the fence of the neighbor's yard and her concern of her well-being. But it's much worse than what the news even showed last night. I have, over the last 2 to 3 years, I have seen guns discharged openly in the air. I have seen meth being used, zombie-like individuals walking on the streets. I have seen drug deals in person in the parking lot of the complex. And it's not just the Northern Heights apartments, but there is a series of complexes in the neighborhood. Galaxy Apartments would be included with this, and Star Avenue that connects the two is a grounds that they traffic 24 hours a day, doing deals on the streets, people laying in people's yards. I have had numerous occasions of people jumping my fence, fleeing from the police. I had one afternoon that I came home from work at 5 p.m. and I had the police department with a car pulled over in front of my neighbor's house that was attending to what I'm assuming is a DUI arrest. At the same time, a stolen vehicle pursuit came around that corner of Star and Space, and the officers that were attending to the DUI arrest tried to deploy spike strips to stop this vehicle that came by my house and nearly came into my driveway at me as I was parking my vehicle. Those are just a few things, and I see my time is nearing the end, but I brought some other fellow neighbors with me that can also attest to things that they have seen, and we appreciate the news coverage last night and just want you all to know how truly bad it has become in our neighborhood, and would love some help to, as this is our entrance to our city, I-90, Haynes Avenue, you see graffiti on the sidewalks, gang wars. They're tagging over each other's spaces. It's not a good look for our city.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll hear from the other neighbors. The next person will be Bill Groves? Did I say that right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. My name is Bill Groves. I'm a past resident. I was Steve's neighbor for about 5 years. I lived on the corner of Space and Star. And I still have copies of security video that was taken from my driveway garage that shows the traffic continually all night long. One particular individual that all night went back and forth. Either delivering or resupplying, I don't know which. I've seen and have video of a drug deal going on right on the corner of my house, on the corner of Space and Star. I and my past significant other our house was burglarized, our garage was burglarized. I had a person try and kick in my back door, and I got up and I was on the phone with 911, and he tried to kick in the front door. Unfortunately, he didn't make it, but if he had, he wouldn't have been around. That's the last thing I wanted to do, was to ever take another life, but I wouldn't let somebody come in my house like that. People in that neighborhood live in fear, and obviously there's no Ward 4 representative today, and maybe you live in nicer neighborhoods. I know the same thing goes on down around the Robbinsdale area, around some of those apartments. But something really needs to be done to protect our citizens, our property values. So whatever you can do, I hope you have a heart for some of your other citizens, because there's a real need to stop this violence and crime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll go to Denise Sokol.
Thank you for allowing us to speak. I live in a home that's backyard is right butted up against the Northern Heights complex. I constantly have trash in my yard that I'm picking up. The trash is not pleasant stuff. The most of it is booze bottles. And in the last time that I was picking up trash, I had a soiled tampon that was thrown into my yard. This is the kind of stuff that goes on. I did get copies of the police reports from a friend. There have been rapes there. There have been gunshots in the buildings. There's domestic violence. I see people coming and going through the windows. And I'm a single person, lives alone, and I am scared to death that if somebody decides they're going to do something, they will. I have repaired my fence, and it's been damaged again. People don't jump the fence, they crawl over it, so they damage it. I put in a section of it just last fall, and it's already damaged. There seems to be nothing we can do. I once called the police department and asked if I could put razor wire on my fence to keep them away. And he said, yeah, you can do that, but if they hurt themselves, they can sue you. I said, what? They're already trespassing on my property, because they had to walk across a piece of my property to get to the fence they were crawling over. So I would have to pay for them, and they'd never be caught or punished. It's sad to think that we have residents in our city who live like this. It's sad to think that there is nothing that those of us who don't like it and don't want it and don't behave that way can do nothing about it. I'm begging you to do something, because we have a parade of police cars constantly going down into that area. And oftentimes it's not just a singular one. It is a group of 3 police cars that go down there. This place doesn't have any sidewalks. They have parking spots for the residents, but there are no sidewalks for them to walk on. We have people walking through the backyards near the backyards of our property, and a lot of times it looks like they're kind of scoping out the area to see what's good or bad about it and where they can misbehave. I came home one day and there was a body in my backyard. So I walked out there. I was thinking, what have we got, a dead person here? Well, this guy was drunk on his butt. When I addressed him, he said, well, I'm not hurting anything. I said, this is my property. You are not welcome here. You have to leave. Well, he cussed at me quite royally, and I said, well, that's it. I'm going to call the cops. So he managed to get himself up and walked around to the other end of the buildings. So if you try to confront anybody, all you get is abuse. So there's a lot of nastiness. It's not just trash, but the trash is definitely a problem for every single one of us residents in the area.
Okay.
Thank you for letting us talk.
Yep, thank you. Next, we have Bonnie Weiner. Wentz.
I too live on Space Avenue. We bought our home 10 years ago, and we bought our home knowing the neighborhood we were moving into and thought maybe we could help, maybe we could make a difference. And I do help as much as I can. I have taken grocery carts back to Walmart. I have driven people around where they need to go if it's cold. I try to help, but it's beyond the scope of help. I can't tell you how many times, with great response, I might add, that I've had to call the police department. If you looked at the docket under Bonnie Wentz, it probably says she called a whole bunch. And I live right in the area where the parking lot goes down, and my backyard is the apartments. And my fence, I have a 6-foot fence all 3 sides of my property, and it's been tagged uncontrollably. With gang-related tags is what the police have told me. I just recently painted it again. I can no longer stain it because it just absorbs into it, and so that's on me. I mean, I know where I live. And I would just like, I've been to the apartments. I talked to the managers. They're all very cordial. They're very nice. They say it's out of their hands, that it's on the scope of the city of Denver where Mercy Housing is centered. And I just want cameras. I just physically want some cameras up on that property. They used to have them. They've all been destroyed or they're old and they won't put any more up. And I'm asking for cameras so that we can have recordings. I watched a beating the other day of 5 men on a juvenile boy that had tire irons, and it scared me to death. We were playing outside with my grandchildren, and we had to run indoors because of it. And I called the police department, and the response was phenomenal. I help as much as I can with the response. I went down and ID'd all the guys, and but grown men with tire irons beating a guy on the ground is not something you should see in a neighborhood. Bullets on my curb, 9 shellings, shouldn't be there. And I'm not blaming the police department, but I am blaming the apartment building. I think it needs to be vetted better. I think also that the staff that's there doesn't really care about what's going on. They don't pick up garbage. They don't mow. When we first moved in, it was immaculate. Things were going on there, and you could tell. And they had people they were kicking out. But the current management is a problem. And I don't know how you guys can take care of any of that or what power you have for that management, but it's not being controlled. And it's a problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Doris Lowing.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Doris Lowing. I'm here with the South Dakota Stock Growers. I bet you didn't think you'd see me again. Last week, on April 10th, there was, before the planning, a request by SJOZB LLC for Todd Gagney to consider an application for a TIF. If you recall, back in August of 2023, Property Meld and 11 Main LLC stood before this city council with a business plan presenting an expansion for the Innovation District. I would encourage you to go back and look at that August 2nd of 2023. there was a real estate transfer agreement between Rapid City, Elevate Rapid City, LL Maine, to purchase the parking lot, which is South Dakota Stock Growers parking lot, is what they're identifying at. It is the city's. I have a copy of that. It is dated September 12th. I encourage you all to read that. The proposal, when they came to you in 2023, that they were going to expand Property Meld. He testified last week in this hearing that Property Meld is not going to be expanded. The community developer was going to be incorporated with Wildfire Labs. He testified that it was not. So what we're hearing is, and after reading this so-called real estate transfer, I'm asking the city to do what they did in writing. The deadline has expired, January 25th, 2025. It says the city can revoke this contract. We have lost parking. We will lose parking. We were able to go with this. But the person that came in and asked to buy this property, you didn't put it up to the highest bidder. How'd you know the stock growers wouldn't buy that parking lot? We need parking down there. With this new building going up, I'm walking a block and I'm paying for my parking to walk a block with boxes. Uncalled for. We have no handicap parking. All the handicap parking is in that parking lot. The city needs to worry about the parking for these people that want to do business downtown. Here's your opportunity. This man came with promises. He did not follow through with those promises. There's been no amendments whatsoever filed. I checked last week downstairs. Here is your opportunity. Give us our parking back. The thing that bothers me the most is he came in here because he doesn't have the funding to get a TIF. He wants a TIF. He wants government money to help him build this because now he doesn't have the funding. He's selling property to buy this property. This should have all been done. We've had 2 years. Thank you for your time. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of general public comment. Next, we'll go to consent items 1 through 9, and I'm going to open public comment on items 1 through 9. And I have no speaker request forms for items 1 through 9, so I'm going to close public comment. Next item is approval of the minutes from the April 2 meeting. There's a motion to approve by Evans and a second by Roseland. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have consent items 2 through 9. Does any committee person wish to pull any items for separate consideration or have any discussion regarding any of those? There's a motion to approve by Bieberdorf and a second by Evans to approve 2 through 9. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. It brings us to the end of the consent calendar. Now to the non-consent items 10 through 12. I'm going to open public comment on non-consent items 10 through 12. Having no request forms, I'm going to close public comment on non-consent items 10 through 12. Then we'll go to the Finance Office for second item number 10, second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6663, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2025. Director Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item before you is the second reading of the supplemental appropriation. It's the first supplemental appropriation for 2025. There have been no changes since the first reading. The vast majority of this is just carryover of projects and initiatives that began in 2024 and were not completed, and so we can no longer use the budgeted funds from 2024 and just need to be rolled over into the current year's budget. In addition, there is some funding for a few additional workers. Those workers would be completing several tasks that currently we have been outsourcing. as part of the mayor and council's drive for greater efficiency, and so we're able to do some of these tasks cheaper and more quickly with employees in-house versus taking things to outsource, whether it's mechanics or also some street and concrete work.
Motion approved by Bieberdorf and second by Roseland. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next is item number 11, consideration to approve the purchase of a site for a North Rapid City Police Precinct. Are we going back to Daniel or Chief, or who's? Okay, we'll go to Director Ainsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, again, is also trying to fulfill some of the mayor and council's top priorities of enhancing public safety. And I'll allow the chief to kind of go into greater discussion about the rationale for and the necessity for this particular site. But I just want to ensure that the public as well as the council is well aware that there was a large team of city staff that reviewed several different potential sites. As such, the staff is making this recommendation of this particular site. We are doing that simply because if you look at the long-term cost for the structure, as well as any renovation costs that might be necessary, as well as the location, when you weigh all of those various factors, everyone did agree that this was the best site for purchasing and locating the North Rapid Police Precinct. I do want to ensure that the council also is aware that when we look at purchasing this, in comparison to what we had described last month, we were making a recommendation that we use general fund on undesignated fund balance for this as opposed to the vision fund. Just want to ensure that the council is aware of that. In addition, before we close, we believe that there's going to be a TIF district that we'll be able to present to the council, and that a portion of the proceeds of that TIF district will be used to offset a portion of the purchase and costs associated with moving the police department to this area. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I'll turn it over to the police chief.
Any questions before we go to Chief? Chief, can I have Bill Evans come in first, and then go ahead, Bill.
I'm seeing that we're moving toward a model where we have more regional and local precinct stations, and I see this will be the second one we've come up with. Now, this is a kind of a paradigm shift, how we do this stuff, and I'm obviously not opposed to that, but I do think that this kind of concept should be implemented into the comprehensive plan, and that should become part of our main document showing why we do this, and I don't know if that has actually been done yet, so it should happen. Okay? That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Then we'll go to Chief Hedrick, and Chief, if you could address with the location of this proposed precinct, would that be the one that would address the Northern Heights issues too?
Yes, and
Okay.
I just had a good chat with the folks from Northern Heights, and our North Sector Lieutenant, actually, I texted him, and he's out there chatting with them to see what we can focus on versus what we can't. So, but yes, that would be in the future a location where we could work out of more of a permanent type of basis, closer to the north side. Just taking a step back historically, if you remember, 4 or 5 years ago, we had an extreme amount of violence in that neighborhood, and that neighborhood in particular. And we temporarily leased some office space to help us be closer to the issues, be closer to the good people living there, and to work together and collaborate to address the crime that was occurring. Well, that leased space was never meant to be a permanent type of solution, and we just feel like we're not able to leave that area. We still have issues despite all the good work that we've done. We still have a lot of work to do up there. And the location that we've looked at provides a lot of access to main thoroughfares and access to main points within the north side of town, but also allows us to keep our resources close to the, one of the areas that needs it most. And we still do have the clubhouse function that Tyler Reed has put together up in the apartment complexes there. So he would have close access to this new proposed site, as well as our resources up at the mall that we currently have through our youth outreach team. At some point, we could bring all of our north units that are operating sort of independently, we could bring them under one roof. And additionally, the site that we looked at has a lot of room for training space, which we feel is very important. Our officers, to become a police officer, have to go through hundreds of hours of training, and our accreditation requires that we continue training even with our current certified officers, and we've just kind of run out of space at our current building. So this allows us a lot more opportunity to engage in the training that we need to do. So it checks a lot of boxes for us, and I was able to look at the other sites as well, and this one just appeared to be the best fit for us.
Go back to Bill Evans.
There you go. Chief, 3 years ago or so, we decided to reallocate some of that community development block grant money over to protective cameras in that Knollwood area. What's the status of those, and is this the same kind of thing we can do with this neighborhood? When they talk about the cameras were installed by the company, I guess, not the city, they say they're not working. Is this a different model we need to go to? I know when we were in London with our kids, big tour group several years ago, we lost one of the kids. And it was kind of amazing when you worked with the police in London to see how you can see where every single person goes. Now, I don't know if that's a violation of our standards in this country or whatever, and we don't want to be accused of being a police state, but is there a way that the community, that the city could be installing, along with Black Hills Energy, on these power poles, cameras that would observe, track people, and know where they go, so that people understand when you're doing this in this community, we're going to catch up?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it kind of leads into one of the other initiatives we've been working on. We've had some pretty major public crime recently solved by the use of video systems. Our most recent downtown homicide, there was some hard investigative work that went on behind that, but having the video that we utilized was crucial. We saw it also on the Skyline Drive issue where we had people firing guns. Cameras led to the arrest of those folks. So, here this month, we're going to be, various entities from the city are pulling together to talk about utilizing some vision funding to get us at least a base of some cameras in our primary thoroughfares as a starting point. It's not a new concept, as you've mentioned. Our other city, or other largest city in South Dakota, of Sioux Falls, has a very robust camera system currently in place, and it's been helpful for the city as a whole, not just the police department. So I think we're trying to get that direction, and we'll have a presentation on this topic in reference to the vision funds here in the near future. And if you ask me, I think it's a good starting point, and it's something we can build off of as we move forward. So we're looking at it.
Go to Pat Roseland.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate how fast you're moving on this project. I think it's a very good thing that's going to be happening in North Rapid. I think that you've worked, I think, very hard to get North Rapid in a position where most people feel safe there now, and the crime has, I think, decreased to like 30% or something over the last few years, all due to what you are doing with the police department. And so I'm definitely in favor of this, and we'll hopefully move on to fruition and get this thing started. Thank you very much. And also, I appreciate you calling your partner up out there to talk to those people. It's very nice of you to do that. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
It's a motion by Bieberdorf and a second by Pettigrew to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item will go to the Attorney's Office for Resolution Number 2025-042, a resolution establishing a city policy for banners in the public rights of way and repealing any previous resolutions related to banners. And go to City Attorney Joel Landine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something I was requested brought forward. I think there have been concerns expressed from time to time about some in outside groups providing access to the banners on the city light poles. Looking at our city ordinances, really, I think some of these were frankly done without any legal authority. I don't know that our ordinance was the issue. I know it's the mayor's hope that we can get kind of the banner mounts we have refocused on governmental and official government and city messaging and not solicit from outside groups. Honestly, right now, the only resolution I could find where we solicit outside groups is the banners across Main and St. Joseph Street. But it is possible there are some other resolutions out there. I think, right now what I'm working on, if you approve this really specifically addresses the banners across Main and St. Joe and kind of gets them, again, refocused on city messages, not opening them up to outside groups, really. I did put in there are some that the Parks Department applications they've accepted and approved over the summer and stuff. Those would be allowed to continue since at the time the applications were made, it was allowed. Those would be approved and allowed to continue. We just wouldn't take any new applications. And then we can, basically, if you approve this, it buys us some time to consider how we want to manage these and what we want to do with them. I am going to reach out and have a discussion. This shouldn't affect the Veteran Banner Honor Project, but we do probably need to have a formal agreement with them in place. I think honoring veterans is something that cities traditionally do, and we can just partner with them to essentially operate a city program, and they can run and manage it like they have been, but we'll have a formal agreement in place. I've also had some preliminary discussions with Visit Rapid City, and which is now the Square, and Visit Rapid City and Downtown Rapid City are all kind of merged into one entity. So I think we need to have some discussions with them about, what do the banners on the light poles downtown look like going forward and what's proper use of those. So again, this resolution is really just the first step to kind of freeze things in place and buy us some time to get some of those other things sorted out.
Thank you, Joel. We'll go to Rod Pettigrew.
Thank you, Councilman Stroman. I don't know if this has been, this resolution has been, if that's been shared with the public or not, but I already have gotten a couple calls on this from some nonprofits that apparently have used that space across the street. I just think, Joel, as we write this, and I know you can't get into every little detail, but we have to be pretty clear of, who can use it. I mean, just making this up, what if the Rapid City Public Schools want to use it? Is that a government entity or not? What if the School of Mines wants to do it? Is that a government entity? I just think if it's not real clear, we're going to have some challenges in the future. Groups will feel maybe they're being disenfranchised for not being able to put up their banner when another group does. So that would just be my suggestion. We just got to be pretty clear as to who gets to use it and for what purpose. Thank you.
Joel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We already have an agreement in place with the School of Mines, in particular for their banners down along St. Joe, along the school area, which allows them to use those hangars to promote the school. I think, again, these will be handled in the future through agreements with organizations to use them. But I think something that you all need to ponder is
there may be groups that everyone generally agrees, nonprofit entities, are good organizations, and they come to you and say, we want to use these, and it'll be hard for you to say no to them. However, if you open these up to nonprofit groups, other nonprofits could come in that maybe you would rather not put their message up, because frankly, a lot of nonprofits target things like this. And I can give you some examples for those of you that may be interested of groups that come in. They propose something that is designed to be controversial, that they know will get you a lot of phone calls. They actually, in many cases, hope that you'll deny it, because whatever publicity they're going to get off putting a banner across Main and St. Joseph and Rapid City, they get a lot more publicity when they sue you because you told them they couldn't put their banner up across the street. You know, PETA is a good example of, they took out advertising in the San Diego airport against SeaWorld. And San Diego ran the airport and said, we spend millions of dollars a year advertising tourism and to come to SeaWorld, and then people get off the plane and they see we don't want to do that. Guess who won that lawsuit? PETA did. So, they want sometimes these groups controversy, and so you're going to have to weigh some of that when you go forward, that some groups that you may want to say yes to, you're going to have to say no to if you want to be able to say no to some of the groups you want to say no to as well. So at this point, again, we're just trying to freeze things in place and buy us some time to get things fleshed out a little more. But I think as we go forward, that's something that all of you as council are going to need to make a policy decision on. Because if we let outside groups apply to use these, then we can't discriminate based on viewpoint. So that's kind of the trade-off. So,
Okay, thank you. Mr. Evans?
I agree with Mr. Landine that there needs to be some way to prioritize them that is listed in advance of just arguing with them once we turn them down. Some, events in this city are citywide events. Some involve cooperative efforts between the city and large community entities like the South Dakota School of Mines or the school district, whatever. So they really become city co-sponsored projects almost. In other cases, these nonprofit ideas are very specific, and I think we need to have the ability to discriminate between what is a city event and just an event that's happening in the city. And I think that's kind of what he's referring to here, but that's going to be a hard one to sort out. But I think when it's using a lot of public money, and the scope of the public money will have a lot to do with how we determine that. So, thank you.
I just got one more question for Joel. Joel, you mentioned the Veterans Honor banners, and you thought that they would, in essence, be grandfathered in because they already have an agreement. Is that accurate?
well, they don't have a written agreement, but we're not going to pull it off. But I'm actually meeting with them on Monday morning. I tried to meet with them this week and stuff, but the schedules didn't work out. But I'm meeting with that group on Monday morning. And we had discussed this with them previously, but I frankly knew it was going to be a question, so I put something in the resolution just to make clear this is not an effort by the city. We're not looking to impact that. But I do think we need to get an agreement in place with them, and we'll bring that forward as soon as we can, hopefully within the next meeting or two.
Okay, thank you. But the proposed resolution doesn't specifically mention them, right?
No.
It's just kind of in the catch-all at the end where it says,
It is really the resolution the only resolution I could find, there are no resolutions pertaining specifically to the banners on the light poles. That's just kind of been done. The council has previously approved that use for that group. But based on the ordinance, they should really have an agreement with the city, a formal agreement written down.
okay, and the other thing is it talks about banners across Main and St. Joseph, and of course the veterans banners have expanded beyond those two
Right.
streets. So
That's the only resolution. There's a resolution about how that we essentially allow groups to apply to use the banners across Main and St. Joe. That's really the only resolution I can find. Like I said, there's a city ordinance that regulates those, and it says you should have an agreement to use those, the light pole ones. The ones across Main and St. Joe are governed by the previous resolution that this resolution addresses. And then we have, the only group I know we have a written agreement with is the School of Mines related to the banners down adjacent to the School of Mines.
Thank you. Mr. Bieberdorf?
Second?
There's a motion by Bieberdorf and a second by Pettigrew to approve. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Next is Alderman items. I just had real quick, we had one speaker today about the Stock Growers parking lot, and I think that is going to be on the agenda for Monday night. And we also had some discussion about vision funds, and I do believe that next week there's going to be presentations to the Vision Fund Committee right here in the chambers. I think the 22nd, 3rd, 4th, and maybe 5th. But, oh, okay, so we'll go to Vicki. Do you have something to add?
I was just going to do the clarification on the TIF discussion that was mentioned today during general comment. It will be on the agenda Monday night, but only set for hearing. And then it'll be your following city council meeting that it would be then fully vetted by the council. But we had to do that in order to meet notification requirements.
Okay. So it'll be a big week down here in Chambers. Make your plans. Motion to adjourn by Evans and a second by Bieberdorf. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.